In 1994, a baby girl was born in Dalian, China, and her parents named her Shao Tong. Her father was a food safety officer and her mother was a housewife. Shao grew up to be a very popular girl. She was very outgoing and eager to have many friends, and she grew up a model student who got the best grades in her class, and her parents always thought that their daughter should go to one of the best universities. That's why, Shao's early childhood, they set up a fund for her daughter's university education, in which they saved money. By 2011, when it was time for Shao to start choosing a university, her parents had saved $100,000. She made the decision that she would study in the United States. Shao dreamed of becoming a biologist, but she also loved chemistry. She eventually decided to study chemical engineering at the University of Iowa. Her father was very proud of the fact that very few women were pursuing this profession at the time, and Shao had the grades and letters of recommendation needed to enter the field. When the girl decided to go to Iowa to study, she had a boyfriend in China named Lai Xianai, who was also planning to go to the US, but he chose a different destination, New York, namely the University of Rochester. They both took a language test and passed it brilliantly, and both had very good academic records. When Lai found out that Shao was going to apply to the University of Iowa, he had already been accepted to NYU. He asked to transfer to another university in Iowa. Of course, that's not exactly where Shao was going, because she was applying to the University of Iowa, and he asked to transfer to the University of Iowa City, but it was a lot closer than if he lived in New York City. He was eventually accepted to this new university in the Department of Economics. In 2012, they went off to study together. Shao's parents did not approve of the relationship, mainly because they felt Lai's character did not match their daughter's. According to Shao's mother, her daughter was a very popular girl, and in addition, she had many suitors. And when she became Lai's girlfriend, she found it very strange, because he didn't have many of the traits she knew Shao was looking for in a man. But there was something about him that the girl liked. Her parents speculated that perhaps it was Lai's mysterious personality, because they thought he was a very quiet man, who didn't talk much or express his feelings in public. In any case, they had both come to the United States with the expectation that after graduation they would marry and start a new life in this country. Shao and Lai started to study normally and also actively interacted with other people, because, as newcomers, they had to meet a lot of new people and make friends. Shao was very social, so she decided to join a group of Chinese students who lived on campus. This group was made up of people of different ages and different majors. Shao repeatedly invited Lai to spend some time with these guys. They would go to the movies, watch movies at some of their homes, and went out to dinner. The girl was trying to bring Lai into the life so that he too would feel that he was part of the group and that he had friends in the US, but he did not seem to be able to make friends with these people. According to the girl's friends, Lai was a very strange person to them, and although Lai and Shao were a couple, he seemed to be stalking her. The guy always wanted to know where she was, accompanied her everywhere, and even wanted to sleep in her house every night. Although to many people this would seem like a sign that he loved her very much and wanted to be with her always. Shao's friends, who watched him closely, it seemed that Lai controlled the girl 24 hours a day. Besides, they were uncomfortable with Lai's presence, as were the girl's housemates, who were also Chinese students. For them, having Lai in the house for so many nights was not very comfortable because of his character, and this did not suit them. In addition, he gave the address of the house where Shao and her companions lived as his own. In their mailbox were his traffic tickets, letters from the university, receipts, all of Lai's legal correspondence, and it seemed a bit odd to them. But anyway, the relationship continued for the next 2 years. At the university they were doing well, plans were going the way they wanted them to. Lai and Shao were going to graduate the university as scheduled, as they were not behind in any subject. Overall everything was going smoothly because they were both very intelligent people. After that, as I said, they had plans to get married, or at least they had agreed to get married when they left China, so the relationship continued as normal. By 2014, Lai and Shao had found a way to be together in a way that didn't upset the girl's neighbors and friends. Since at Shao's house, Lai wasn't really welcome and she didn't want to move because she trusted people and there was a rent she could afford. On weekends they would go to a hotel on the outskirts of Iowa City. They did this regularly, and September 5, 2014 was no exception. Shao told her friends that she would be spending the 5th through the 7th with Lai at this hotel. She took a suitcase that she had at home, packed her clothes and personal belongings, and left with Lai. They both used a car that Shao had bought last year with the money she earned during her summer internship. With this car they traveled everywhere, since Lai couldn't buy a car for himself and also didn't really like to drive because he had accumulated several traffic tickets in the US. So they left in the girl's car. That was the last time Shao's friends and neighbors saw her. According to the hotel manager, and as far as the credit card transactions go, they arrived at the hotel on the evening of the 5th. They checked out of the hotel on the 7th of September. According to the receptionist, he saw Shao on the evening of the 6th. That's the last time anyone is known to have actually seen the girl. After the couple checked into the hotel and were there, Shao socialized with her friends. But in this socializing, strange things were happening. First, Shao liked to make phone calls and mostly video calls. But in those days, she only sent text messages. Another oddity, she wasn't texting from her phone, but from Lai's phone, since her phone was supposedly broken. But from the way Shao was texting, friends thought that maybe it was Lai, not her, who was texting. Besides, she needed to talk to her father because she had new glasses made at the optician's, and her father wanted to know if they fit her, how they fit, and so on. Shao only responded to him only by text message. He asked her to make a video call, but she declined, saying she was too busy. The man later said it was very strange behavior because Shao was always trying to talk to her family and she always tried to do it over by video link. Her father hesitated for a moment, but thought that maybe she had a lot to do, or maybe she had a job or something. So he decided not to make a big deal about it. It is known that the couple left the hotel on September 7th. The front desk clerk said the car was no longer in the parking lot. The receptionist didn't see the couple leave. They just cleaned up, left the room, and left their keys in the front desk drawer because they were leaving very early on September 7th. This behavior on their part was very strange. The hotel was small, only the receptionist and a few other staff members were in it, and they said that always, when Lai and Shao stayed at the hotel, they would leave on the last day in the evening, say goodbye to everyone, and seemed like a nice enough couple. But on that morning of September 7th, something was different. When the receptionist came in for his shift, around 9 a.m., he found the keys in a box at the front desk, and he also didn't see the couple's car again. He therefore assumed that they had left early in the morning. After they allegedly left the hotel, Shao texted her best friend. She told her that Lai had to return to China as his family was having problems. Furthermore, Shao added that she wasn't going back to Iowa, but to Minnesota to visit friends, which was also quite strange since no one knew the girl had friends in Minnesota. She fit in very well though. She had a lot of friends and socialized with a lot of people. She had no friends outside of Iowa. Shao hardly ever traveled out of state, and her friend thought it was very strange that she wanted to take an independent road trip by car to Minnesota. In the first few days after receiving these messages, Shao's friend informed everyone else that the girl had gone to Minnesota and also told her roommates. Days went by and there was no word from Shao. Everyone began to get very worried. On September 16th, almost 10 days after the girl's last text message, they reported her missing to Iowa authorities. According to police officials, when friends reported Shao missing, they thought it was just another case of a young international student going away for a few days to party, to see the country, or a boyfriend or something, and didn't think much of it. But when the officers started tracking Shao's movements, as well as her boyfriend Lai, they got worried. It became known that Lai had bought a ticket to China. And it was very strange, because the departure date was one day after Shao texted her best friend that she was going to Minnesota. That's when it was suspected that this guy had something to hide. It's worth noting that there is something about this case that has subsequently become very important. China does not have extradition treaty with the United States, which means that they do not extradite the person. They do not bring him into a country that requires him to be tried, but they try him themselves in China. So the officers did come to believe that Lai had killed Shao and strategized to circumvent justice and not go to prison because they would never find him in China or he would get a lesser sentence. But up until now it was just speculation. There was no evidence to suggest that this is what happened. There wasn't even a single piece of evidence that could give the police any idea that Shao was in danger. Only a few days later, on September 26th, Shao's car was found in a parking lot. The car had been parked there for many days, but because it wasn't a very luxurious or large car, it went unnoticed, until an odor began to emanate from it. Quite a strong odor. That's when people called the police and the officers were able to confirm from the license plate that it was Shao's car. When they opened the trunk, they saw a horrible sight. There was a suitcase in the trunk, a suitcase with a body in it, which was identified as Shao Tong's body. She had several bruises on various parts of her body and, as I said, she was stowed in a suitcase, the same suitcase she took with her boyfriend for the weekend. An autopsy confirmed that Shao had received several blows to the head and face, but died of asphyxiation. The trunk of the car was also found a towel with the logo of the hotel where the young men had stayed at the last weekend they were seen, all of which led police to obtain a warrant to search the hotel. It's worth noting that it had been more than 20 days since the couple had stayed at that hotel, and it had been more than 20 days, and this room had been passed through and cleaned repeatedly, so the officers thought they wouldn't find anything to help them. But you have to remember that these hotels are called transit hotels. They are for people who are only going to stay a few nights, so they're not cleaned as thoroughly as other hotels. Behind the headboard of the bed, officers found many items that helped them in their investigation. It hadn't been cleaned in a long time, and the headboard itself hadn't been cleaned properly. As a result, several traces were found, including blood, seminal fluid, and saliva. These traces tested positive for samples of Shao and Lai's DNA. By this time, Lai had much to explain to the police. Detectives found out that he had indeed traveled to China and never returned to the US, so he could have been anywhere in this country, and it was very difficult to find him and even more difficult to get him to the US. But the police persisted and kept looking for a way to bring him to justice. U.S. officers sought help from Chinese police, but at that point they asked for more evidence that Lai could be linked to the murder. They wanted to get proof because to them, the fact that his fluids were in the hotel room was not reliable proof that this guy took his girlfriend's life, because the fluids didn't necessarily come from a violent assault. Police then looked up Li's last cell phone location when he was in the United States. In this way, officers determined that on September 7th, he was near certain rivers. To the police, this indicated that he wanted to dispose of Shao's body. That's why he put it in his suitcase, and that's why he went near those rivers. But they were not very deep rivers, and he couldn't find a place deep enough to put the suitcase in, and no one would find it. Also testifying against Li were his own friends. His girlfriend said that in the days leading up to Shao's disappearance, Lai had been acting very strange and nervous. The girlfriend also said that he asked her if she knew how many days it took to find a missing person. The question seemed strange to her because at the time they didn't talk about it. They didn't know anyone who was missing, and she didn't understand why her friend was interested in all this. Furthermore, on Li's computer, which he had left at the dormitory where he lived, had a history of finding information on how to get rid of a person, how one can disappear, and he also searched for an extradition treaty between China and the US, and many other things that already seemed like pretty conclusive evidence. With all of this in mind, the US police again contacted Chinese law enforcement. Since Shao was also a Chinese citizen, they decided to issue an arrest warrant for Lai. He was captured in October 2016 and imprisoned in China. Afterward, Iowa police sent an investigator and several police officers to China with evidence in their possession, and to help investigators in that country put together a full case file against Lai. The Iowa investigators brought in all the evidence, transcribed, videotaped, of witness testimony, samples found in the car, and in addition, all of this was supplemented with photographs. All of this helped the Chinese police build a case against the young man. It should be noted that Shao's parents at the time demanded the death penalty for Lai. Li's psychological profile showed him to be impulsive and very aggressive, and the guy's girlfriend also reported that he told her that his biggest fear was that Shao would meet someone else and leave him, that he had supposedly already planned his whole life with her. The girl then told him that he was being very clingy, that they were very young and perhaps they could meet other people. But Lai seemed to be too obsessed with the idea of starting a family with Shao, being with her all the time and only her. He even confessed to his friend that he didn't want Shao to be around her classmates or the Chinese guys she met on campus. After all the evidence and testimony collected in the US was made public, Li began to give his version of events. He stated that he had not planned anything, although, as we already know, he had inquired about the disappearances from his friends a few days before, and also his computer history shows that it wasn't a search the day before their trip to the hotel or when they were at the hotel, but weeks before. Authorities believe that it was planned, that he brought Shao to that hotel that weekend to take her life, because he felt she would leave him for someone else and he didn't want her to be with anyone else. In 2016, Li pleaded guilty in March and was sentenced in August. As you know, Shao's family requested the death penalty for him, but he received a life sentence. When Shao left her parents in 2012 at the age of 18, she left her friends and everything in China to move to the US. She was thinking about a new life full of dreams, illusions, goals, and projects. She left with the guy she loved at that moment and with whom she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. Shao never thought she was traveling next to the man who, in 2 years later, would be her killer. She never envisioned any of this when she left her country, and all her dreams and illusions were cut short in September 2014 at the hands of a man she trusted. Choose your soulmate carefully. Tell us in the comments what you think about this story, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on new horror crime stories.